Hello, my name's Rob. I'm part of the clergy team at Portishead. Welcome to our thought for the day for this week. I wonder if you've seen the film Ratatouille. It's a lovely film. If you haven't seen it, you really ought to. It's a Pixar film, ostensibly a film for children, but it's not at all. Well, it is for children, but it's also for adults. And it's a film that tells the story of Remy the rat. And Remy is a rather unusual rat because he loves food. Well, all rats love food, but Remy is not content with eating food from the rubbish tip. Remy loves good food. And there's a scene early on in the film when he finds a chantal mushroom and a really lovely piece of cheese, and he shares them with his brother, who's rather nonplussed. But then Remy says, look, don't just eat them apart, eat them together. And he's so excited by the difference that it makes, by the fireworks that happen when you eat really good food and combine good food together. Remy loves food, not just as fuel, but because it's great. We're going to hear now the reading for today, in which Jesus talks about food and not just food as fuel, but food as something far more important than that. It comes from John's Gospel, chapter 6, and reading from verse 44. Jesus says, "No one can come to me unless drawn by the Father who sent me, and I will raise that person up on the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they shall all be taught by God. Everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me. Not that anyone has seen the Father, except the one from God. He has seen the Father. Very truly I tell you, whoever believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, so that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats of this bread will live forever, and the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh." So what's Jesus doing here? Well, he refers in the passage to manna, and that takes us back to Moses. In fact, the passage is drenched in Moses. We start John chapter 6 with the feeding of the 5,000, and then John goes on to tell us the story of Jesus walking on the water, before Jesus then goes on and has this long section where he talks about bread, much longer than the bit we've just heard. And John is pointing out that Jesus is coming a little bit like Moses. A little bit like Moses, who fed the Israelites in the desert. Well, Jesus fed the 5,000. A little bit like Moses taking the people of Israel through the waters of the Red Sea. Well, Jesus walked on water. And here Jesus is saying, look, I am the bread that came down from heaven. A little bit like Moses feeding the people of Israel with manna in the desert. But Jesus goes a bit further than that. He's not just saying, I'm a bit like Moses. He's actually saying, I'm greater than Moses. Because what he's saying is, I'm not just Moses. I'm the bread that Moses provided. And Jesus is saying something really important here. He's saying, look, you need you need me, just like you need bread to live. In order to have life, and life in all its fullness, you need to feed on me. You need to take me into yourself. And that's a really rich and important thing to say. But in order to really understand this, we need to understand the place that food had for people in Jesus' day, for people in Israel in the first century. That food was the place where relationships happened. Sitting together at the table, it wasn't just food as fuel, it was food that built relationships, that really transformed things. You sat down and ate together, and that was where life happened. And of course, we see that echoed in our own special meal in communion or the Eucharist, that special meal that we share, where we feed on Christ as we take the bread and we drink the wine. But it happens in other places as well, and it seems to me that the communion or the Eucharist doesn't just point us to itself, doesn't just point us to Jesus in that way, but it reminds us that every meal that we share together, every time we share food together, that's really special. And so, when in a couple of weeks' time we have our annual meeting, we're going to begin our annual meeting with a glass of wine. Not just because we think that makes conversation flow more easily, but because it builds relationship as we share drink together. On the 24th of May, when our new colleague Tonya will be licensed as teen pastor, after that service, we'll share food together. Not just because it encourages people to stay around, but because that's where relationship is built. And that's true too if we invite people to our homes to come and share food, to have a cup of coffee, if we meet in a cafe. Relationship is built as we share food and share drink together. And so this passage reminds us that Jesus is at the heart of who we are. Jesus invites us to feed on him, to put him at the centre of our lives. But it reminds us too how important relationship is, relationship with one another, as we share food together, be it at the communion, be it at a cup of coffee after the service, be it a glass of wine at the beginning of the annual meeting, or a shared supper after Tonya's licensing. Here we build relationship with one another, and it's there that the gospel is lived out. May God bless you.